Now today, Theresa May said that cladding from 120 high-rise buildings across England has failed fire safety tests carried out in the wake of the Grenfell Tower disaster. But is the government's investigation overlooking another potentially crucial issue, insulation? Tom Clark has this report.
The formal inquiry hasn't started yet, but attention immediately fell on Grenfell Tower's external aluminium plastic cladding as one reason for the fire's rapid and lethal spread. And since they started looking, the same material has been found on every cladding building tested. Today, 120 high-rises and counting.
So far, 100% of the samples that have come in have proved to be combustible. So work on the assumption that you should be doing the fire safety checks now.
The key word there is combustible, but by focusing on just the exterior cladding, the government's investigation may be overlooking another potentially crucial source of combustible material on high-rises: insulation. Most modern cladding is made up of two distinct layers. The outer layer, the subject of the current review, a sandwich of combustible plastic and aluminium. But beneath that is a layer of insulation. The Metropolitan Police announcing last week that tests on Grenfell Tower material showed this was more combustible than the outer cladding. Last week, we tested a sample of the brand of insulation used on Grenfell Tower, called Celotex RS5000. As with the police test, this wasn't an official regulatory test, but clearly showed under certain conditions it burned readily. The company which makes it has now withdrawn the product for use on high-rises, pending the inquiry. But there are a few other brands of insulation that have passed the rigorous fire safety tests for use in high-rise cladding systems. One from a market-leading firm, Kingspan, is called Cooltherm K15. We obtained some and took a sheet of the material back to the independent testing laboratory. After preparing a sample, we tested it using this machine, producing about 700 degrees centigrade. And the temperatures we're using here are comparable to a fire situation?
Broadly speaking, yes.
This isn't equivalent to the official large-scale test that a product has to go through to comply with fire regulations, but again should show on a standalone basis whether it's combustible or not. First, we exposed the foil-covered side of the panel to the heat. Shut it down. After several minutes, it was buckled and charred, but not burning. Then we tested the material on its unfoiled edge. Tall building insulation is installed vertically as part of a system with fire stops that should protect edges from heat. But on its own... So that caught fire almost near enough instantly. Kingspan told us,
small-scale testing has the potential to mislead. Compliance with fire safety regulations for buildings rests with builders and the government.
If the first way to comply with high-rise building regs is to only use non-combustible materials, how can insulation that burns meet them? Well, that's because there are other ways to comply, the best being an official fire test like this on an entire cladding system. In the brochure for Cooltherm K15, the company details fire safety tests performed on their insulation with different types of outer cladding. This should give building designers clear information about what combinations of cladding will meet fire regulations. But speak to fire safety experts and they'll tell you that regulations don't necessarily require you to combine different cladding components in the way in which they were tested by their manufacturers.
Every standard has its limitations and every product has its particularly unusual characteristics. And so when you combine products, multiple products with multiple characteristics into the latest building design, you get a new cocktail. And that's the difference between compliance and building something that's safe.
In a statement, Kingspan told us,
the use of Cooltherm K15 boards or any competing insulation brands to complement cladding that is non-compliant with building regulations would never be acceptable to Kingspan or any other responsible provider.
It added,
Kingspan remains confident that properly installed and specified, our products deliver reliable and energy-efficient insulation solutions.
Increasingly popular cladding for high-rise buildings is complex engineering, and if designed and installed correctly, cladding is fire safe and legal. But the current inspection of the nation's tower blocks shows the building industry and our regulations have clearly failed to understand it properly.
Tom Clark.